Hey, what's up guys? I'm here at the remains of Spahn Ranch, down the hill from it rather. The ranch was once up on this hill up here. It burned down and everything has been since pushed down into this ravine. But this is a location where the Manson family used to come and hang out. As a matter of fact, this is what they call the Manson Cave. There's a famous Time magazine photo from the Manson cult sitting in this cave. Spahn Ranch, it was once up on that hill. It was a famous movie set. I believe Gunsmoke and a few other Western shows were filmed there. And the owner of Spahn Ranch, George Spahn, allowed the Manson family to stay there in exchange for taking care of the horses and the grounds and stuff like that. Rumor has it, they were taking care of him too, so some of the girls had to tend to George Spahn's needs. This is where they come hang out behind Spahn Ranch. And this rock in particular right here, this was Charles Manson's rock. Now legend has it, the locals cut this rock in half because it had Charles Manson's name on it because they didn't want to have any of his supporters come here and this to become like holy grounds or whatever. This is now Santa Susana Pass State Park, so anyone can come here. You can come check it out. As what I've been told is up the hill right there, opposite of where Spahn Ranch used to be, that is private property. So you want to stay down here. Now I would show you up the hill, but everything is very overgrown and unfortunately there's not much left to look at. I saw a show on History Channel or somewhere where they believe there was bodies buried back here and they brought cadaver dogs. And I guess the cadaver dogs picked up on some scents, but they dug down and they did not find anything. As notorious as the Manson family is, I'm sure there's a lot of urban legends and made up stories about them. But is there anyone buried here? Who knows? There was someone buried down the street, and I'll show you that in a second too. You know, it's pretty creepy being out here. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I keep getting the feeling that I'm being followed. I get out of here before something bad happens to me. This is exactly what I was worried about seeing. Luckily this one's dead already. That is a rattlesnake. So we're about a half mile west of Spahn Ranch now. See, there's an old trail. I guess that was an old stagecoach trail. And the Manson family were notorious car thieves, and they would steal mainly Volkswagens, strip them for parts, and then what they would do is they'd take them over to that trail and then push them down the hill. It's 1969, these cars are still sitting down there. As a matter of fact, Spahn Ranch was raided after the Sharon Tate murders and before the Mansons were caught due to car thefts. So a number of the Manson cult was already in jail when they found out they were in fact responsible for the Sharon Tate and La Bianca murders. Supposedly at the very end of this trail there's even more abandoned vehicles, but if you saw the condition of that trail and that dead rattlesnake over there, you probably wouldn't go out there either. But you know what, maybe one of these days. Guys, it's the last thing I'm going to show you today from the Manson family. And we are about a half mile east of Spahn Ranch. Spahn Ranch is down the road that way. And right here, you'll see this little turnout. And then there's a storm drain down here. Now this is a location of one of the last Manson family murders. Right down here, where the Manson family murdered Donald Shorty Shea. Right in there. The Manson family, as I said before, they were car thieves, and the Spahn Ranch was raided by the police, and they believed that Donald Shorty Shea was an informant and snitched on them. So Charles Manson, Tex Watson, Bruce Davis, Steve Grogan, Bill Vance, and Larry Bailey forced Donald Shorty Shea into the back of the car, pistol whipped him, beat him, and brought him down here, and they murdered him in there. Rumor has it that they could hear him screaming all the way from Spahn Ranch, which is a half mile down the road. They also say that Charles Manson used to hang out in this tree and play his guitar. After they murdered Donald Shorty Shea, they took his body from that storm drain and they drug it down the hill. Then they buried his body about 40 yards down that way. His body wasn't discovered until December of 1977 when one of them in jail disclosed the location of his body in order for a plea deal. His body was found down that hill. I'm not going to go down there because it's pretty steep and I'm wearing Chuck Taylors and I don't want to be buried down that hill either. But it's kind of interesting to know that right here was the last of the Manson murders. Kind kind of creepy being in the place that all this stuff happens all these years later. A bonus tidbit, right down at the end of the street is the storm drain I just showed you. And right up the street here, if you see that rock, that is the iconic rock from the intro of the Lone comes down this hill. What you can't tell is this hill is really steep, so it's more impressive when you see it in person. Here's our next stop. We're right across the street from 3311 Waverly Drive. This was the location of the La Bianca murders. On the second night of the Manson murders over August 8th and 10th, 1969, Charles Manson, Tex Watson, Patricia Krimrickle, and Leslie Van Houten came to this house. Charles Manson walked up to the front yard. At the time, the garage wasn't there, and the gate wasn't there, and all these trees were not out front, so it was just a big lawn. Charles Manson walked up, and he looked in the front, and he saw Leno and Rosemary LaBianca sleeping. He tied them up, and he came back to get Tex Watson, Patricia Krimrickle, and Leslie Van Houten. They went back inside, Charles Manson left, and then Tex Watson and the rest of them ended up killing Lena and Rosemary LaBianca. They stayed in the house for hours. They said that they ate food out of the refrigerator, took showers, and then they left here on foot. Tex Watson wrote in his book that he threw the murder weapon into a reservoir that's near here. And if you look at the map, there's only one reservoir near here. And the murder weapon was never recovered. So there's a possibility that the murder weapon's still sitting in that reservoir over there. That's where the murders took place, right in that house in 1969. Rumor had it that Charles Manson had partied with some people that lived next door. I'm not sure which house, one of these houses around here. So that's why this house was chosen. So here we're at another more obscure Manson location. And on the night of the second murders, of the La Bianca murders, Charles Manson left the scene with Linda Kasabian, Steve Grogan, and Sadie Atkins and came to this chevron, which is right off of I-5. And Charles Manson then told Linda Kasabian to hide Rosemary LaBianca's wallet in the women's bathroom at this chevron. Linda Kasabian opened the toilet lid, put the wallet inside of it, and then closed it up. The wallet wasn't found until December of that year, after all the Manson family members were arrested for the murders. Charles Manson did this because he believed that this neighborhood was a black neighborhood. He was hoping the wallet would be found by a black person and they could trace the crime back to them. If you didn't know, the whole purpose of the murders in the first place was to start a race war. It's really crazy to think that back in 1969, they had gender-specific bathrooms. It's just crazy, isn't it? As Linda Kasabian was hiding the wallet, Charles Manson went into this Denny's next door and ordered 4 milkshakes. At that point, they decided what they were going to do next. They were planning another murder, which was going to be an actor friend of Linda Kasabian's. They left here. Charles Manson drove them to Venice Beach and dropped them off to commit the other murder, which never took place because Linda Kasabian didn't want anyone else to die, and she led them to the wrong apartment. Pretty weird to know that in 1969, right here, that night, the Manson family came to this Denny's in this chevron. Anyways, I'm gonna go get a milkshake.